Some people have not gotten the memo that the girl boss era is over. Someone invited me to something that was called like boss brunch, and I was like, I'm out. If there's boss in the title, if there's women, girl, lady boss, she boss, I'm out. I'm gone. There's something so toxic about these women in business spaces where there's like not a lot of business happening, but a lot of like women happening. Like, we've got to stop with the boss. I don't feel like a boss. I don't think you're a boss. None of this is, we're not bossing.
Have you ever stopped to wonder why the world feels so fractured? Why men and women seem to be drifting further apart, locked in a silent war nobody dares name? The truth is staring us in the face. Society is unraveling, and women are caught in a trap they helped build, blind to the consequences, piling up like a tidal wave, ready to crash. Stick with me to the end, because I'm going to unravel a truth so raw, so undeniable, it'll shift how you see everything, and you won't want to miss the final piece of this puzzle that ties it all together. If you're fired up by this kind of no nonsense, straight to the point content, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to smash that notification bell and select all so you get every single Angry Guy video the moment it drops. You don't want to miss what's coming next. And if you're serious about protecting your wealth and growing your assets in these chaotic times, head over to Angry's Crypto Academy. It's your one-stop resource to learn how to buy, sell, and trade crypto like a pro. The link's in the description. Go check it out right now and start safeguarding your future. Plus, if you're loving these Angry Guy videos and want to keep the fire burning, you can support the channel by buying me a Red Bull. The link for that is also in the description. Every bit helps keep this content coming your way. Now, let's dive into the heart of it. Women are lost. Not just lost in a metaphorical sense, but trapped in a cycle of delusion so deep, so insidious, that it's reshaping society before our eyes. They've been sold a bill of goods, the promise of freedom, empowerment, and a world remade in their image. But the reality, it's a mirage. Women have been led to believe they can have it all: careers, independence, endless choices, without giving anything in return, especially in relationships. And men are done. They're exhausted from the arguments, the accusations, the endless demands that ignore reason and thrive on emotion. Men have looked at this broken system, seen through the illusions, and made a choice. They're walking away, not with loud protests or grand gestures, but with quiet, resolute steps into solitude. And as men shut women out, women remain caught in a web of magical thinking, unaware of the price they're about to pay. Something catastrophic is happening, and it's happening in plain sight. Women are being excluded, not just from relationships, but from the very fabric of society. Men who have historically been the protectors, the providers, the ones who stood between women and the harsh realities of the world, are no longer there. And it's not just about romance or family, it's about security, stability, and survival. Women are losing their privacy, their autonomy, their futures, and they don't even see it. The system they thought would protect them, feminism, social movements, the state, is the same system now tightening its grip, stripping away their choices. The irony is brutal. In their quest for liberation, women have traded real freedom for a cage disguised as progress. And as men step back, refusing to play the game, women are left exposed to a world that's far less forgiving than they were led to believe. For decades, women have been told men are unnecessary. Feminism, in its various waves, preached that men were obstacles, oppressors, relics of a bygone era. Movements like #MeToo amplified this, casting men as villains simply for existing. Women were encouraged to shame men, push them out of public spaces, and remake society in their image, proudly declaring the future is female. If any other group had made such a claim, it would have been called out as supremacy, plain and simple. But because society bends over backward to avoid questioning women, these ideas took root unchecked. Women were handed a blank check to reshape the world, and they cashed it without considering the cost. They embraced ideologies: socialist, authoritarian, Marxist, without scrutiny, believing they were building a utopia. But now the bill is coming due, and it's women who will pay the heaviest price. Men, by design, have always shielded women from the world's dangers, nature's brutality, economic hardship, even tyranny from the state or corporations. Remove men from the equation, and women are left vulnerable to forces they're unprepared to face. Here's a hard truth: if you want to destabilize a society, you target the men. And if you want to target the men, you use the women to do it. But the final step, the one nobody talks about, is letting women destroy themselves. That's where we are now. Women have been dodging accountability for so long, it's become a reflex. They're conditioned to avoid consequences, to shift blame, to operate in the moment without considering the long term fallout. But consequences don't vanish, they stack up, growing into a mountain that's about to collapse. Women thought feminism freed them, but it didn't. It chained them to a system that exploits their labor, taxes their income, and robs them of their most fertile years. Before feminism's second wave, women often didn't need to work to survive. Now they must work just to scrape by. And the option of finding a man to provide is fading as men walk away. Even in marriage, two incomes are now required to maintain a basic lifestyle, yet men still bear the brunt of expenses. And as men reject this rigged game, women are losing even that flawed safety net. Feminism didn't liberate women, it handed them over to corporations and the state. By flooding the workforce with women, companies gained a surplus of labor, allowing them to slash wages for everyone. Men's salaries stagnated, and women were forced to work just to keep up. The sexual revolution, sold as empowerment, encouraged women to prioritize casual relationships over family, eroding their ability to form lasting bonds. Science backs this up. Oxytocin, released during intimate moments, fosters trust and connection. But for women, repeated partners weaken this mechanism, making it harder to find contentment with one man. The result? Skyrocketing divorce rates, fractured families, and women left wondering why happiness feels so elusive. Meanwhile, society cheers, telling women they're winning while they're losing everything that matters. Men have caught on. They've seen through the doublespeak, the emotional reasoning, the disconnect between what women say and what they mean. Women often prioritize feelings over facts, which can lead to decisions that seem irrational to men grounded in logic. This isn't about superiority, it's about recognizing a fundamental difference. Women's emotional nature can draw them toward conflict or delusional thinking, and without men to provide balance, they spiral. Society, instead of addressing this, has conditioned men to enable these delusions, to nod along, to avoid being labeled as insensitive. But enabling delusion doesn't lead to progress, it leads to destruction. Men are now using this very system against women, not out of malice, but out of survival. They're complying with women's demands in ways that expose their flaws. Take South Korea, where men have turned feminist policies into weapons. When women claim men were harassing them, men push for laws limiting how many times a man can approach a woman. 3 strikes and it's a crime. Sounds like protection, right? Wrong. It's a trap. Men now have a legal excuse to avoid women entirely, and women can't cry discrimination when men steer clear. The law incentivizes men to disengage, leaving women with fewer opportunities to connect, forcing them to make snap decisions or miss out entirely. It's a masterclass in ruthless compliance. This tactic isn't limited to South Korea, it's spreading. In the US, China, the UK, and beyond, men are opting out. No more chasing, no more dating, no more free drinks at bars. Industries like nightlife and dining are collapsing because men, the ones who historically footed the bill, are gone. Bars are filled with women waiting for men who never show. Restaurants, especially upscale ones, sit empty. Coffee shops, bookstores, gyms, men are abandoning these spaces, building their own alternatives. Home gyms, private clubs, decentralized economies where men barter skills and goods. These are the new realities, and women are locked out. If a woman needs access, she either needs a man to vouch for her or faces inflated prices. An electrician might charge a woman double what he'd charge a man, not out of fairness, but because men no longer see women as allies. They see them as competitors in a zero sum game, and they're playing to win. And women are now at the mercy of a state that doesn't care about them. The state's interest isn't protection, it's control. Look at the adult industry. Prostitution is illegal until it's taxed and regulated. Then it's suddenly empowering. Platforms like OnlyFans are sold as liberation, but the average creator earns just $120 a month after fees, while the top 1% rake in a third of the profits. Yet society normalizes this, inviting top earners to speak at colleges, convincing young women it's a viable path. The truth? Most men won't commit to a woman with an OnlyFans past, and the internet never forgets. That $120 comes at the cost of future job prospects, social standing, and self respect. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. Tax records will haunt these women, shutting them out of opportunities, leaving them dependent on a broke state that can't or won't support them. And with men walking away, there's no fallback. The state, corporations, and bad actors now have free reign, and women are defenseless. The rights women fought for are hollow. Higher education, sold as empowerment, has left women drowning in student debt, working jobs that barely cover rent. The gender pay gap narrative alienates men further, ignoring that men often work higher risk, higher reward jobs. Women's freedom has become a trap, isolating them in workplaces and society. Online, you'll see women pleading for men to approach them again after years of telling men to stay away. But men have learned women's words often mask their true intentions. Claims of harassment frequently stem from insecurity or rejection, not reality. Society, instead of questioning this, punishes men, feeding a cycle where women double down, men disengage, and the divide widens. The state exploits this, incentivizing division to maintain control. Women think they're partners with the state, but they're pawns, discarded when no longer useful. Men, the true producers, are the state's real target, and women are just the tool to control them. As men build parallel economies, decentralized, exclusive, and free from state control, women are being left behind. Digital IDs and online safety laws sold as protection are tools for surveillance and control, limiting access to resources, communication, and freedom. Women, conditioned to prioritize safety, fall for these scams, while men create shadow economies they can't enter. Freedom of speech means nothing if nobody listens, and men are done listening. Women's lies, manipulations, and demands have burned that bridge. Without men, families, or communities, women face a future of debt, despair, and destitution. The data is stark. By 2030, 45% of women will be childless and single, and when you include single mothers, that number could hit 70%. AI will wipe out jobs women dominate. The state will be too broke to help, and men will be gone, leaving women to face a merciless world alone. The world is shifting under our feet, and women are standing on the edge of a cliff, blind to the drop below. They've been fed a narrative that their choices, careers over families, independence over interdependence, the state over men, are victories, but these are Pyrrhic wins at best. The cost is becoming clear. a future where women are isolated, impoverished, and stripped of the very agency they thought they were gaining. Men, meanwhile, are not just walking away. They're building a new reality, one that excludes women by design. This isn't about revenge, it's about survival. Men have seen the game for what it is, and they're refusing to play by rules that guarantee their loss. As women cling to the illusions of empowerment, they're losing the foundations of a stable life, relationships, community, and the protection men once provided. The state and corporations are happy to fill the void, but their support comes with chains, and women are only now starting to feel the weight. Let's talk about the economy because it's the backbone of this mess. Women were sold the idea that joining the workforce en masse was liberation, a chance to break free from the home and prove their worth. But what really happened? Corporations got a flood of new workers, doubling the labor pool overnight. Basic supply and demand kicked in. More workers meant lower wages for everyone. Men's salaries, which once supported entire families, stagnated. Women, now expected to work to survive, found themselves competing for the same jobs, driving wages even lower. The result? A world where two incomes are barely enough to cover rent, groceries, and bills. Women didn't gain freedom, they gained a treadmill, running faster just to stay in place. And while they're told this is progress, the data tells a different story. Women are retiring earlier than men, often by a decade, but living longer, which means their savings, already stretched thin, have to last through years of inflation and rising costs. The promise of financial independence is a cruel joke when you're working to the bone, only to retire into poverty. The state loves this. Why? Because a divided workforce is a controllable one. By pitting men against women, the state ensures neither group has the cohesion to push back against exploitation. Women were told to demand equality, but what they got was equity, a rigged system where everyone loses. Men, seeing their role as providers eroded, are opting out of the traditional script. Why marry when the financial burden falls disproportionately on you? Why commit when the legal system incentivizes divorce and punishes men for trying to build a family? Women, meanwhile, are left to navigate a workforce that demands their youth and energy but offers no loyalty in return. The corporate world doesn't care about your empowerment, it cares about your output. And when you're no longer useful, when age or burnout slows you down, you're discarded. Women are waking up to this reality, but it's too late to undo decades of chasing a mirage. Now, let's get to the cultural shift because it's where the real damage is done. Women have been conditioned to see men as adversaries, not allies. Pop culture, media, and social movements have spent years painting men as the source of all problems. Every TV show, every ad, every viral post reinforces the message. Men are either bumbling idiots or dangerous threats. This isn't accidental, it's a deliberate campaign to erode trust between the sexes. And it's worked. Women now view men with suspicion, assuming the worst before the first word is spoken. But here's the flip side. Men have noticed. They've seen the contempt, the accusations, the double standards, and they're responding not with arguments or apologies, but with absence. Men are ghosting society quietly, methodically, and permanently. They're not begging for approval or fighting to be heard. They're building their own spaces, their own systems, and leaving women to fend for themselves. This withdrawal is reshaping every corner of life. Take social spaces, bars, clubs, and restaurants used to thrive on men's willingness to spend money to impress women. That's gone. Men aren't showing up, and these industries are bleeding. Women still go, but they're not the ones dropping cash. They're waiting for someone else to pick up the tab. Without men, the cash flow dries up and venues close. The same is happening in retail. Bookstores, coffee shops, boutique stores, these were built on the assumption that men and women would mingle, spend, and keep the economy humming. But men are staying home, brewing their own coffee, buying used books online, or skipping the social scene entirely. Women are left in half empty spaces, wondering where everyone went. The answer is simple. Men aren't coming back. They've found better uses for their time and money, and they're not sharing. This isn't just about leisure, it's about survival. Men are creating parallel economies, decentralized networks where they trade skills, goods, and services without relying on the mainstream system. Think barbers cutting hair for carpenters, who build furniture for mechanics, who fix trucks. It's a barter system built on trust and mutual benefit, and it's explicitly male. Women can't access these networks unless a man vouches for them, and even then, the price is steep. Need a plumber? If you're a woman, you're paying double, maybe triple, because men no longer see you as someone to protect. They see you as a competitor, and competitors get no favors. This isn't fairness, it's the law of the jungle. Men are playing to win, and women are learning the hard way that the world is a lot colder without men's goodwill. The state, of course, is complicit. It thrives on division because a fractured society is easier to control. Look at family law, divorce laws, child custody, alimony. These are designed to incentivize conflict, not resolution. Women are encouraged to leave marriages, file claims, and weaponize the system against men. And it works for a while. But the long term cost is devastating. Men burned one too many times are refusing to marry at all. Marriage rates are plummeting, and with them, birth rates. South Korea, Japan, the US. The pattern is global. Men are the gatekeepers of commitment, and they're closing the gate. Women, told they don't need men, are now facing a future without partners, without children, without the family structure that humans have relied on for millennia. The state doesn't care. It gets to tax single women's income, control their choices, and keep them dependent. But women are starting to feel the void, and no amount of boss babe rhetoric can fill it. Let's talk about health, because it's another casualty of this divide. Women's mental and physical health is deteriorating, and the numbers don't lie. Depression rates among women are soaring, outpacing men by a wide margin. Why? Because humans aren't built for isolation. Women, in particular, thrive in communities, families, friendships, partnerships. But those are crumbling. Feminism told women to prioritize careers over relationships, and now they're surrounded by coworkers, not loved ones. And social media amplifies this, creating a facade of connection while leaving women lonelier than ever. Physically, the picture is just as grim. Women are working longer hours, sleeping less, and facing stress related illnesses at unprecedented rates. The push for equality has meant women taking on high risk, high stress roles without the biological or psychological resilience men evolved to handle. And without men to lean on, emotionally, financially, or otherwise, women are burning out faster than ever. The irony is that men are adapting. They're not happy about it, but they're surviving. Men are wired for hardship, built to scan for threats and respond with action. They're channeling their energy into self improvement, side hustles, or outright rebellion against a system that's turned its back on them. Women, on the other hand, are more vulnerable to emotional and social disruption. They're more likely to internalize failure, to feel the sting of rejection, to crave validation that's no longer coming. Without men to provide stability, women are adrift, and the state's solutions, therapy, medication, welfare, only deepen their dependence. The mental health industry is booming, but it's not fixing the root cause, a society that's abandoned the natural balance between men and women. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: trust. It's gone. Women have been taught to distrust men, and men have learned to distrust women. This isn't just personal, it's systemic. Women's accusations, often rooted in emotion rather than evidence, have been weaponized by the state and media. A single claim of harassment, no matter how flimsy, can ruin a man's life. Men know this, and they're acting accordingly. They're avoiding women in professional settings, refusing to mentor them, and steering clear of any interaction that could be misconstrued. This isn't paranoia, it's self preservation. Women, meanwhile, are doubling down, mistaking attention for harassment and rejection for oppression. The cycle feeds itself. Women demand more safety. The state cracks down on men. Men withdraw further, and women are left with nothing but their own echoes. The state's role here is insidious. It's not protecting women, it's using them. By amplifying women's grievances, the state justifies its own expansion. Online safety laws, digital IDs, surveillance systems, all sold as ways to protect women and children, but really designed to control everyone. Women, conditioned to prioritize security over freedom, are the perfect pawns. They'll vote for these measures, cheer for them, without seeing the trap. Men, on the other hand, are building workarounds, crypto, off grid communities, encrypted communication. Men are creating systems the state can't touch. Women, reliant on centralized institutions, will be locked out. The state will offer them scraps, subsidies, public housing, basic income, but it'll come with strings. Your data, your privacy, your autonomy, all traded for a safety net that's more net than safety. Education is another battleground. Women were told to pursue degrees, to become boss babes, to outshine men in the classroom. And they did. Women now outnumber men in higher education, earning more degrees across the board. But what's the result? Crippling debt, underpaid jobs, and a workforce that values credentials over skills. Women are graduating with master's degrees only to find themselves in roles that barely pay the bills. The promise of upward mobility was a lie. Education has become a tout a debt factory, churning out workers for a system that doesn't reward them. Men seeing this are skipping college in droves, opting for trades, entrepreneurship, or self education. They're learning skills that translate to real world value, while women are left with framed diplomas and empty bank accounts. The cracks in society are widening, and women are slipping through, unaware they're falling into a trap they can't escape. They've been sold a vision of a world where they're unstoppable, independent, powerful, in control. But it's a house of cards, and the wind is picking up. Men, once the architects of stability, are dismantling their role in this broken system, not out of anger, but out of necessity. They're not arguing anymore. They're not pleading for fairness. They're walking away, building their own paths, and leaving women to face a reality that's colder, harsher, and more unforgiving than they ever imagined. The state and corporations are circling like vultures, ready to exploit the fallout, and women, blinded by decades of promises, don't see the danger until it's too late. This is the New World Order, and it's not the utopia women were told to expect. Let's start with the illusion of choice because it's at the core of this deception. Women have been told they have endless options: pursue a career, delay marriage, prioritize personal freedom. But choices come with trade offs, and nobody told women the fine print. Every year spent chasing degrees or climbing corporate ladders is a year not spent building relationships or starting families. Biology doesn't negotiate. Women's fertility peaks in their 20s, and by their mid 30s, the window narrows sharply. Society, instead of being honest, pushes women to ignore this, celebrating late in life careers while downplaying the risks of delayed motherhood. The result? A generation of women facing infertility, regret, and a loneliness that no promotion can fix. Men, meanwhile, aren't bound by the same clock. They can build their lives, wait, and still have options later. This asymmetry isn't cruelty, it's nature, but women were told to ignore it, and now they're paying the price. The state benefits from this confusion. A childless single woman is a reliable worker, a consistent taxpayer, and a loyal voter for policies promising security. The state doesn't want strong families, it wants dependence. By encouraging women to prioritize individual achievement over community, it ensures they stay tethered to its systems: jobs, welfare, healthcare. Men, seeing this, are opting out of the family structure entirely. Why sign up for a system that penalizes you at every turn? Divorce courts favor women, custody battles skew against fathers, and alimony can chain a man to a decision he made decades ago. Men aren't stupid, they're doing the math and walking away. The birth rate is tanking, not because women don't want kids, but because men are refusing to commit to a game rigged against them. And without families, women are left with nothing but the state's hollow promises. Let's talk about technology because it's reshaping this divide in ways nobody saw coming. Artificial intelligence is already wiping out jobs, and women are disproportionately vulnerable. Administrative roles, customer service, retail, these are female dominated fields and they're being automated at breakneck speed. In less than 10 years, millions of women will find their careers obsolete, replaced by algorithms that don't need sick days or salaries. Men, on the other hand, dominate trades and tech, fields less susceptible to automation. Electricians, welders, coders, these are skills that hold value in a post AI world, and men are doubling down on them. Women, encouraged to pursue soft skills like communication or management, are finding those skills devalued in a market that prioritizes hard, tangible output. The education system, which pushed women into these vulnerable fields, isn't preparing them for this shift. It's churning out debt laden graduates with degrees that won't pay the bills. Men are also leveraging technology to bypass the system. Cryptocurrency, decentralized platforms, encrypted networks. These are male driven spaces built to evade state control. Women, reliant on centralized institutions like banks or corporate platforms, are being left behind. If you need to buy something in a crypto based economy, good luck if you're not already in the loop. Men are gatekeeping these networks, not out of spite, but because trust is gone. Women's emotional reasoning and short term thinking make them less reliable partners in high stakes underground systems. Men want counterparts who can think strategically, not react impulsively. And they're not finding that in women conditioned by a society that rewards feelings over logic. The result is a digital divide as real as the social one, and women are on the wrong side of it. Now let's get to the social fabric because it's unraveling faster than anyone admits. Women thrive in communities, tight-knit groups of family, friends, neighbors, but those are disappearing. Urbanization, careerism, and social media have replaced real connections with shallow substitutes. Women are surrounded by people, but lonelier than ever, scrolling through curated lives that make them feel inadequate. Men, by contrast, are more comfortable with solitude. They're wired to handle isolation, to focus on tasks over relationships. This isn't better or worse, it's just different. But in a world where community is collapsing, men's resilience gives them an edge. They're building their own networks, exclusive and purpose driven, while women are left chasing likes and validation from strangers online. The irony is brutal. Women fought for independence, but they're more dependent than ever on systems that don't care about them. The media plays a vicious role here. It's not just entertainment, it's propaganda. Every show, every movie, every ad pushes the same narrative. Women are flawless, men are flawed. Women are victims, men are villains. This isn't subtle, it's relentless. The goal is to keep women angry and men demoralized, ensuring they never work together. Women internalize this, seeing men as obstacles to their success. Men, tired of being scapegoats, disengage. They're not watching sitcoms or rom coms anymore. They're consuming content that aligns with their reality: podcasts, forums, raw discussions about survival. Women, meanwhile, are fed a steady diet of empowerment anthems that leave them unprepared for the real world. When the fantasy crashes, they're left with nothing but resentment and a sense of betrayal. The workplace is another battleground. Women were told to lean in, to break glass ceilings, to outwork men, and they did. But the corporate world isn't a meritocracy, it's a machine. It chews up ambition and spits out burnout. Women are taking on high stress roles, sacrificing health and happiness for titles that don't deliver. Men, seeing the grind for what it is, are opting for flexibility. They're freelancing, starting businesses, or choosing jobs that prioritize freedom over prestige. Women, locked into the corporate hamster wheel, are finding themselves trapped by golden handcuffs: decent pay, but no time, no energy, no life. And when they look for mentorship or support, men are nowhere to be found. Why? Because men have learned the hard way. Helping a woman in the workplace can backfire. A kind word, a favor, a recommendation, any of it can be twisted into an accusation. So men keep their distance, and women are left to navigate a cutthroat world alone. The legal system is gasoline on this fire. Laws meant to protect women have become weapons used to punish men and tilt the playing field. Workplace harassment policies, for example, sound noble but are often vague enough to be abused. A man can lose his job, his reputation, his future based on a single unproven claim. Women, encouraged to speak their truth without evidence, wield this power recklessly. But it's a double edged sword. Men are now avoiding women in professional settings entirely. No mentorship, no collaboration, no risk. This isn't equality, it's segregation. Women are losing access to the networks and knowledge that drive career success. And when they complain, the state steps in with more laws, more restrictions, driving the wedge deeper. Men respond by withdrawing further, and the cycle spirals. Let's talk about safety, because it's the bait that keeps women hooked. The state and media sell women on the idea that they're in constant danger, that only more laws, more surveillance, more control can keep them safe. Women buy it, trading freedom for a false sense of security. Digital IDs, online safety bills, tracking apps, these are pitched as shields, but they're shackles. They give the state unprecedented power to monitor, restrict, and punish. Men, wary of overreach, are building alternatives, anonymous platforms, off grid systems, cash based transactions. Women, conditioned to trust authority, are signing up for the state's protection without reading the terms and conditions. By the time they realize they've traded privacy for control, it'll be too late. The housing market is another trap. Women were told to invest in themselves, to buy homes, to build wealth, but real estate is a rigged game. Prices are skyrocketing, wages aren't keeping up, and single women are stretching themselves thin to afford a mortgage. Men, less tied to the idea of settling down, are choosing mobility, renting, van life, or co living with other men. They're prioritizing flexibility over debt, while women are locking themselves into 30-year loans they can't escape. And when the market crashes, as it always does, women will be hit hardest, left with underwater mortgages and no safety net. Men, unburdened by the same emotional attachment to home, will adapt and move on. The healthcare system is no better. Women's health is declining, not just from stress, but from lifestyle choices pushed as empowerment. The wine mom culture, the glorification of overwork, the dismissal of rest, these take a toll. Women are more likely to face chronic illnesses like autoimmune disorders or mental health crises, and the system's response is to medicate, not heal. Men, focusing on physical fitness and mental discipline, are faring better. They're hitting the gym, eating clean, and rejecting the pharmaceutical treadmill. Women, caught in a cycle of quick fixes, are becoming dependent on a healthcare system that profits from their suffering. And with men no longer stepping in as caregivers or providers, women are left to navigate this maze alone. The education debt crisis is a microcosm of this mess. Women, told to pursue higher education at all costs, are drowning in student loans. The average woman graduates with tens of thousands in debt, only to enter a job market that doesn't value her degree. Men, increasingly skeptical of college, are choosing trades or self education, avoiding the debt trap. Women are left with credentials that don't translate to wealth, while men are building skills that do. The state and universities don't care. They're raking in tuition dollars while women struggle to pay off loans that'll haunt them for decades. And when women turn to men for support, they find empty chairs. Men aren't signing up to subsidize someone else's bad bet. The cultural shift is finalizing this divide. Men are rediscovering purpose through discipline, stoicism, fitness, entrepreneurship. They're creating content, communities, and philosophies that reject society's script. Women, fed a diet of consumerism and victimhood are struggling to find meaning. The self care industry, bubble baths, affirmations, overpriced candles, is a poor substitute for the purpose that comes from family, community, or partnership. Men are building their own tribes, while women are sold the lie that they can do it all alone. The reality? Nobody thrives in isolation, but men are better equipped to endure it. Women, wired for connection, are crumbling under the weight of a society that's cut them off from the relationships they need most. The future is a warning. Women will soon face a world where their jobs are gone, their savings are depleted, and their social networks are digital ghosts. The state, broke and overstretched, will offer crumbs: basic income, public housing, rationed healthcare, but it'll come with total control. Men operating in parallel systems will thrive, not because they're inherently better, but because they've adapted to a world that no longer values cooperation. Women, left to the mercy of a predatory system, will find their rights are meaningless when nobody's listening. The state doesn't care, corporations don't care, and men have stopped caring. This is the harvest of decades of division, and women are reaping what was sown. The world is tilting, and women are sliding toward a future they didn't sign up for, blind to the forces steering them into a corner. They've been fed a steady diet of empowerment, told their choices are limitless, but the truth is stark. Every path they've been nudged down leads to a dead end. Men, once the backbone of a system that balanced society, have checked out, not with fanfare, but with a quiet, resolute turn away from a game they can't win. They're forging their own way, carving out spaces where women aren't welcome, not out of hatred, but out of pragmatism. The state and corporations are licking their chops, ready to exploit the chaos, and women, lulled by decades of false promises, are waking up to a reality where their options are shrinking, their security is crumbling, and their voices are fading into the noise. This is the reckoning, and it's not the future women were sold. Let's dive into the myth of progress because it's the foundation of this delusion. Women have been told that every step forward, more degrees, more jobs, more rights, is a victory, a brick in the wall of equality. But progress isn't linear, and not every change is a win. The push for women to dominate the workforce, to outshine men in education, to redefine family and relationships was pitched as liberation, but it's a Trojan horse. Women are working harder than ever, but for what? Wages are stagnant, costs are soaring, and the average woman is scraping by, buried under debt and stress. The promise of financial freedom has morphed into a lifetime of hustling just to afford to a one-bedroom apartment. Men, seeing the grind for the trap it is, are stepping back. They're not chasing corner offices or six-figure salaries tied to 80-hour weeks. They're choosing freedom, side gigs, minimalism, or outright rebellion against a system that demands their soul for a paycheck. The state thrives on this treadmill. A workforce of overworked, overstressed women is a gold mine. Tax dollars flowing, dependence growing, and no time to question the system. Women were told to lean into careers, to sacrifice youth and family for ambition. But the trade off is brutal. The corporate world doesn't reward loyalty, it rewards output. When women burn out, they're replaced, no questions asked. Men, meanwhile, are pivoting. They're learning trades, building businesses, or tapping into decentralized economies that don't answer to HR departments or tax collectors. Women, locked into the mainstream system, are vulnerable to its whims: layoffs, automation, or policy shifts that prioritize profit over people. The state doesn't care about their empowerment, it cares about their compliance. And as men build alternatives, women are left clinging to a machine that's running out of steam. Now, let's talk about relationships because the collapse of trust between men and women is the heart of this divide. Women have been conditioned to see men as optional, replaceable, even dangerous. Media, education, and social movements have hammered this home, painting men as obstacles to progress. The result? Women approach men with skepticism, assuming the worst before the first hello. Men feel this and they're not sticking around to prove themselves. They're walking away from dating, from marriage, from any interaction that carries risk. And the risk is real. Legal systems, workplace policies, and social norms are stacked against men. A single accusation, true or not, can destroy a man's life. So men are minimizing contact, avoiding women in professional and personal spaces, and building lives that don't depend on female approval. Women, meanwhile, are left wondering why nobody's approaching them, why the apps are empty, why the bars are quiet. The answer is simple: men have better things to do. This withdrawal is reshaping society's foundations. Marriage rates are in free fall, and with them, the family unit. Women were told they could delay commitment, focus on themselves, and still have it all later. But men aren't waiting. They're prioritizing their own goals, fitness, wealth, purpose, and refusing to sign up for a system that punishes them for trying to build a life with someone. The legal system fuels this. Divorce laws, custody battles, alimony, these tilt heavily in women's favor, but at a cost. Men are opting out entirely, and women are left with fewer partners, fewer prospects, and a ticking biological clock. The state loves this. It gets to tax single women's income, control their choices, and keep them dependent on its programs. But dependence isn't freedom, it's a leash, and women are starting to feel it tighten. Let's shift to the digital realm because it's where this divide is accelerating. Social media has weaponized women's emotions, turning connection into comparison. Women scroll through curated lives, perfect vacations, flawless bodies, thriving careers, and feel like they're failing. This isn't accidental. It's designed to keep women insecure, chasing validation through likes and followers. Men, by contrast, are ditching these platforms or using them strategically, building communities around ideas, not egos. They're on forums, in group chats, sharing knowledge about crypto, fitness, or survival skills. Women, stuck in the Instagram trap, are wasting energy on a game that offers no reward. The mental health toll is staggering. Women report higher rates of anxiety and depression, fueled by a digital world that profits from their discontent. The internet also amplifies the trust gap. Women's voices dominate social media, often weaponizing emotions to call out perceived slights. A man's misstep, real or imagined, can go viral, costing him his job, his reputation, his future. Men know this and they're logging off or going anonymous. They're building spaces where women can't follow, encrypted platforms, private servers, decentralized networks. These aren't just hobbies, they're lifelines. Men are creating digital fortresses where they can speak freely, trade value, and plan for a future that doesn't include women. Women, reliant on mainstream platforms, are exposed to surveillance, censorship, and manipulation. The state and tech giants love this. They get to track women's data, control their narratives, and sell their attention to advertisers. Women think they're expressing themselves, they're just feeding the machine. Let's talk about power dynamics because the balance has shifted. Women were told they could have it all: control over their lives, their bodies, their futures. But power without responsibility is a fantasy. Women have been given tools to influence society, laws, policies, cultural narratives, but they're wielding them without foresight. Accusations of harassment, for example, carry immense weight, but they're often rooted in emotion rather than evidence. Women use these tools to punish men, to gain leverage, to feel validated. But every time they do, men take another step back. Workplaces are now minefields. Men avoid mentoring women, collaborating with them, or even speaking to them beyond what's necessary. This isn't equality, it's a chill that's freezing women out of opportunities. Men aren't risking their livelihoods for a pat on the back, and women are losing access to the networks that drive success. The state exploits this fracture. By amplifying women's grievances, it justifies its own expansion. More laws, more oversight, more control. Women cheer, thinking they're being protected, but they're handing over their autonomy. Online safety bills, for instance, sound like they're about stopping harassment, but they're really about surveillance. They track what you say, what you buy, where you go. Men wary of this are going off grid, using cash, encrypted apps, or bartering systems. Women conditioned to trust authority are signing up for digital IDs and verified accounts, thinking it's progress. It's not. It's a cage, and the state holds the key. By the time women realize they've traded freedom for safety, they'll be locked in with no way out. The economy is another choke point. Women were told to invest in themselves, buy homes, get degrees, build careers, but the math doesn't add up. Housing prices are astronomical, and single women are stretching themselves to the breaking point to afford a condo or a starter home. Men, less tied to the idea of nesting, are choosing mobility, renting, sharing spaces, or living minimally. They're dodging the debt trap, while women are signing up for mortgages they'll be paying into their 60s. When the next market crash hits, and it will, women will be left holding the bag, with homes worth less than their loans. Men, unburdened, will pivot, while women are stuck in a cycle of financial servitude. Consumerism is another lie women have bought into. The self care industry, skincare, wellness retreats, subscription boxes, targets women promising happiness in a bottle. It's a multi-billion-dollar scam, preying on women's insecurities while offering nothing of substance. Men, by contrast, are investing in themselves differently. Gym memberships, skill building courses, tools for independence. They're not buying into the hype, they're building tangible value. Women, bombarded with ads for the next must have product, are draining their savings on fleeting dopamine hits. The result? Women are poorer, more stressed, and less equipped for a future where self reliance is the only currency that matters. Let's talk about time, because it's the one resource you can't get back. Women are spending their prime years, 20s and early 30s, chasing goals that don't deliver. Careers, travel, finding themselves. These are sold as the path to fulfillment, but they come at the cost of relationships and family. Men, less pressured by time, can afford to wait. They're focusing on building wealth, skills, or purpose, knowing they can settle down later. Women don't have that luxury. By the time many realize they want a partner or kids, the pool of available men has shrunk, and the ones left are either uninterested or unavailable. The state doesn't care. It benefits from a generation of single, childless women who work, pay taxes, and stay dependent. But women are starting to feel the emptiness, and no amount of you go girl rhetoric can fill it. The cultural narrative is the final nail. Women are told they're strong, independent, capable of anything. But capability isn't the same as invincibility. Women are human, with vulnerabilities that society ignores. They need connection, support, community, just like men do. But by rejecting men, by dismissing family, by prioritizing individual gain, women have cut themselves off from the systems that sustain them. Men, adaptable and resilient, are finding new ways to thrive. Brotherhoods, mentorship, shared goals. Women, fed a lie that they can do it alone, are facing a future of isolation. The state will offer band aids, subsidies, therapy, public programs, but these are crumbs, not solutions. Women are losing ground, and men aren't coming back to catch them. The storm is here, and women are standing in its path, unaware of the devastation about to hit. They've been sold a dream of endless, well, just empowerment, of a world where they can have everything without sacrifice, but the bill is coming due, and it's brutal. Men have walked away, not with loud protest, but with a cold, calculated exit, leaving women exposed to a society that's turning on them. The state and corporations, once their supposed allies, are tightening the screws, and the consequences are piling up. Poverty, isolation, and a loss of agency so profound it'll reshape women's lives for generations. This isn't a warning, it's a reality unfolding in real time. And women are about to face a future where their choices, their rights, and their dreams are crushed under the weight of a system they helped build. The first consequence is economic ruin, and it's already taking root. Women have been pushed into the workforce, told that careers are the key to freedom, but the reality is a trap. Automation is gutting female dominated fields, administration, retail, customer service, replacing millions of jobs with algorithms that don't need breaks or benefits. By 2030, the majority of women will face unemployment or underemployment with no safety net to catch them. The degrees they were told to chase, the debt they took on, are worthless in a market that values skills over credentials. Women are graduating with tens of thousands in student loans only to find jobs that pay barely above minimum wage. The cost of living is skyrocketing: rent, groceries, healthcare, and women are stretching every dollar with no savings to fall back on. Single women, in particular, are hit hardest while unable to rely on a partner's income or shared expenses. The state, broke and overstretched, can't help. Welfare programs are shrinking and public services are crumbling. Women are facing a future of financial destitution, where even basic needs become luxuries they can't afford. Housing is another crushing blow. Women were encouraged to buy homes, to invest in their futures, but the market is a house of cards. Prices have soared beyond reason, and single women are taking on mortgages they can barely manage, tying themselves to decades of debt. When the next economic crash hits, and it's not a question of if, but when, home values will plummet, leaving women underwater, owing more than their properties are worth. Foreclosures will spike, wiping out what little wealth women have built. Men, less tied to the idea of home and more likely to rent or live minimally, will dodge this bullet, pivoting to cheaper markets or shared living. Women, emotionally invested in the dream of ownership, will be left with nothing but liens and regret. Public housing, if it's even available, will come with strings, surveillance, restrictions, and a loss of autonomy that makes it more prison than refuge. The dream of a stable home is slipping away, and women are facing a future of transient, precarious living. Health is deteriorating, and it's a silent crisis that's hitting women hardest. The push for equality has meant women taking on high stress, high risk roles without the biological resilience men have evolved for. Chronic illnesses, autoimmune disorders, heart disease, mental health crises are surging among women, fueled by overwork, poor diet, and relentless pressure. The wine mom culture, the normalization of sleep deprivation, the dismissal of rest as weakness, these are taking a toll. Women are more likely to rely on medications, from antidepressants to painkillers, creating a cycle of dependency that profits big pharma while eroding their vitality. Healthcare costs are soaring, and with no savings or support, women are skipping checkups, delaying treatments, and watching their health spiral. Men focusing on fitness, discipline, and prevention are faring better, building resilience through diet and exercise. Women, without men to lean on as caregivers or providers, are navigating a broken system alone, facing a future where illness is a constant companion and recovery is a luxury they can't afford. Mental health is another casualty, and the numbers are staggering. Women are reporting record levels of depression, anxiety, and loneliness, driven by a society that's cut them off from connection. Humans are social creatures, and women, wired for community, suffer most when those bonds dissolve. Social media, sold as a solution, is a poison pill, amplifying insecurity and isolation. Women scroll through curated lives, feeling inadequate, while the algorithms keep them hooked, draining their energy and self worth. The state's response, therapy, apps, hotlines, is a band aid on a gaping wound. Real connection, family, friends, partners, is what women need, but those are gone. Men have walked away, Families are fractured and communities are digital facades. Women are left in echo chambers of their own thoughts with no one to pull them out. The result is a mental health epidemic that's pushing women toward despair, substance abuse, and, in the worst cases, self destruction. The state doesn't care. It profits from the chaos, offering just enough to keep women functional while tightening its grip. Social isolation is perhaps the cruelest consequence. Women were told they could thrive alone, that independence was the ultimate goal. But humans aren't built for solitude, and women, in particular, need relationships to flourish. By rejecting men, dismissing family, and prioritizing careers, women have severed the ties that sustain them. Friends are fleeting, replaced by coworkers or online followers who vanish when the going gets tough. Family structures, once a bedrock, are crumbling. Divorce, delayed marriage, and childlessness have left women without the support of kin. Communities eroded by urbanization and technology are no longer places of mutual aid, but collections of strangers. Men, adaptable to isolation, are building their own networks. Brotherhoods, mentorships, tribes where women aren't invited. Women, left to fend for themselves, are facing a future of profound loneliness where their only companions are screens and the state's cold bureaucracy. The loss of agency is a consequence that cuts deep. Women were promised control over their bodies, their careers, their destinies, but it's a lie. The state and corporations have hijacked their choices, turning freedom into a scripted path. Digital IDs, online safety laws, and surveillance systems sold as protection are stripping away privacy and autonomy. Women, conditioned to prioritize safety, are signing up unaware they're trading their rights for control. Every transaction, every post, every move is tracked, stored, and used to limit their access to resources, communication, and opportunities. Men, wary of this, are going off grid, using crypto, bartering, or anonymous platforms to evade the state's reach. Women, tethered to centralized systems, are locked out of these alternatives, dependent on a state that views them as pawns. Their rights mean nothing when every choice is monitored, every dissent is punished, and every opportunity is gatekept by a system that doesn't care. The sexual marketplace is another arena of harsh consequences. Women were told to embrace the sexual revolution, to explore their desires without restraint, but the fallout is devastating. Science shows that repeated partners erode women's ability to pair bond, making lasting relationships harder to sustain. Divorce rates have soared, and women are finding it harder to find men willing to commit. Men, aware of this dynamic, are opting out of the dating pool, refusing to invest in women who, statistically, are less likely to stay. The apps are drying up, the bars are empty, and the men who remain are either uninterested or opportunistic, taking advantage of a market where women have less leverage. The state encourages this chaos. It taxes single women's income, profits from their labor, and keeps them dependent. Women, sold the lie of endless options, are facing a future where they're single, childless, and without the partnerships they were told they could delay indefinitely. The commodification of intimacy is a related consequence, and it's chilling. Platforms like OnlyFans, sold as empowerment, are normalizing sex work, convincing women they can monetize their bodies for profit. But the numbers don't lie. The average creator earns just $120 a month after fees, while the top 1% rake in the lion's share. Women are humiliating themselves for pennies, leaving a permanent digital trail that destroys their reputation and job prospects. Tax records will flag their involvement, shutting them out of public and private sector roles. Men, aware of this, are refusing to commit to women with such histories, further shrinking the pool of eligible partners. The state, meanwhile, profits, taxing every transaction while promoting this as liberation. Women are left with nothing but regret, their futures tainted by a decision society told them was empowering. The streets or the state are their only fallback, and both are merciless. The erosion of safety is another brutal reality. Men, historically the protectors, are gone, and women are now at the mercy of a world that's anything but kind. Crime rates are rising, and women, more vulnerable to violence, are facing threats they're unprepared for. The state's response, more police, more cameras, more control, doesn't solve the problem, it deepens it. Women are trading freedom for a false sense of security, while the real dangers, economic instability, social isolation, systemic exploitation, go unaddressed. Men, building their own systems, are prioritizing their own safety, leaving women to fend for themselves. The result is a future where women are more exposed, more afraid, and less equipped to navigate a society that's turning predatory. The loss of purpose is a consequence that's harder to quantify, but no less devastating. Women were told to chase careers, degrees, and personal fulfillment, but these are hollow without meaning. Family, community, and relationships give life purpose, but women have been steered away from these, left with shallow substitutes: promotions, followers, material goods. Men, rediscovering purpose through discipline, brotherhood, and self reliance, are finding clarity in a chaotic world. Women, fed a narrative of individual triumph, are facing an existential void. The self care industry can't fill it, therapy can't fix it. Women are waking up to a life that feels empty, where their achievements don't translate to happiness. The state doesn't care. It profits from their discontent, offering distractions while the real sources of meaning slip away. The final consequence is the collapse of hope. Women were promised a bright future, but the reality is grim. In just a few years, the majority will be single, many childless, and facing an economy that's left them behind. Their health, both mental and physical, will be in decline, their savings depleted, their social networks frayed. The state, their supposed protector, will be too broke to help, offering only control in exchange for compliance. Men, operating in parallel systems, will thrive, not because they're inherently better, but because they've adapted to a world that rewards pragmatism over idealism. Women, tethered to a failing system, will find their dreams, careers, homes, families reduced to ashes. The optimism of the past, the belief that progress would lift them up, is gone, replaced by a future of struggle, scarcity, and solitude. These consequences aren't abstract, they're measurable, inevitable, and already here. Women are poorer than they were a century ago, in worse health and less happy. Their rights have expanded, but their quality of life has plummeted. The state and corporations, the architects of this mess, will keep profiting while women bear the cost. Men, once their shield, are gone, and no amount of rhetoric can bring them back. This is the harvest of decades of division, and women are reaping a bitter crop. The world is moving on, and women left behind will face a future where survival is the only goal, and even that is no guarantee. What do you think about this? Do you see these consequences unfolding, or do you have a different take? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Let's get this conversation going. Like the video if you're feeling it. Subscribe to stay locked in for more Angry Guy content, and share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. All roads lead to MWA. Men walking away. Cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.